Hi, welcome back to Hill and Ponton's YouTube channel. I am attorney Melanie Williams, and today we're going to talk about the proposed changes to the regulations for sleep apnea and tinnitus. So like we've been covering in our last couple videos, I'm sure many of you got a scary email from the VA about some big changes that are coming. So we wanted to go over with you what these changes are going to look like. Basically, the VA has proposed some new changes to the evaluation and disability ratings for certain conditions. These include respiratory conditions like sleep apnea, among other respiratory issues, as well as tinnitus and mental health. We're going to be focusing on the respiratory issues, specifically sleep apnea and tinnitus, because those seem to be the ones that affect veterans the most. If you want to learn more about the proposed changes for mental health, you can watch our other video by clicking on our video card icon somewhere around here. Okay, so first thing you need to know, these are still proposed changes. These are not final. These have not gone into effect yet. We don't know when or if these changes will go into effect. So do not panic. If you are already service-connected and receiving disability benefits for these service-connected conditions, you will not be affected. These will only apply to new claims that are filed moving forward once the regulation goes into effect. Now, if you have a claim on appeal while the new changes go into effect, then you will be entitled to whichever rating is the most favorable. So again, right now, if you are service connected and you're receiving benefits, as long as you don't submit a new claim or file anything new to the VA, you won't be affected by these changes. And again, they are proposed changes. They are not yet in effect. So let's start by looking at some of the what these proposed changes are. These changes are being applied to 38 CFR, which stands for Code of Federal Regulations, and it's section 4.96, which the VA states that the purpose of these changes is to clarify, simplify, and eliminate redundancies in the special provisions regarding respiratory conditions. They intend to do so by incorporating more current medical terminology specific to respiratory and auditory conditions. So in their first proposed rule change for the respiratory symptom, the VA wants to establish that sleep apnea is the only respiratory condition that can be combined with other respiratory disabilities. So if you are service connected for sleep apnea, you can't also receive a rating for another respiratory condition like asthma. You would instead get the higher rating of the two. This new change that they're proposing is that if you are service connected for sleep apnea, the sleep apnea can be combined with another respiratory disability rating. But other respiratory conditions still cannot be combined. It's just they are making an exception for sleep apnea. The VA is also looking to add a new paragraph that includes information on respiratory conditions and comorbid cardiovascular conditions. Typically, the VA looks at METs, which is the metabolic equivalent, and it's defined as the amount of oxygen consumed by a person at rest. This is how the VA rates certain heart conditions like coronary artery disease. They assign a certain MET number depending on the activities that you can do. But METs apply both to heart and lung conditions, so now they will be used to evaluate both cardiovascular and respiratory conditions, but they can't be used for both. So the VA will be using whichever is the most advantageous to the veteran. Additionally, the VA wants to have a general rating formula for respiratory conditions included right up front, designed to simplify the whole system by just pointing to one formula instead of multiple diagnostic codes that all sound ambiguously similar. So, again, right now, the way that different conditions are rated, they sound similar. They each have their own code. Right now, the VA is combining all of it into one general rating formula for the respiratory conditions. They actually explained some proposed changes to several respiratory conditions, so we'll leave a link down below so you can click and check that out for yourselves. We don't want to make this video too long or confusing, so we're just going to highlight some of them, but again, you can check that out on your own. So some of these conditions include airway disorders, tuberculosis lung disease, vascular lung disease, lung neoplasms, bacterial lung diseases, parenchymal lung disease, mycotic lung disease, and other respiratory conditions. Looking at sleep apnea specifically, the VA is proposing to revise the rating criteria pretty significantly. They are changing it to be around the basis of earning impairment instead of the current criteria that they use, which is around treatment. So it's likely going to be more difficult for you to get the proper benefits or to get the proper rating for it. So the way that the current criteria is set is they look at treatment, the treatment that's prescribed. But now they're going to be looking at the impairment despite the treatment. So instead of assigning a rating just based on the use of a CPAP machine, they're going to be looking at how you respond to that CPAP machine or how you respond to the treatment in order to establish the rating. So right now, the way the current criteria is set up, if you are service connected for sleep apnea, you would be assigned either a rating of 0% if you are asymptomatic but with documented sleep disordered breathing, or a 30% rating if you have persistent daytime hypersomnolence, which basically means you have excessive sleepiness, and a 50% rating if you require the use of a CPAP machine. This is where most veterans fall, because usually when you're diagnosed with sleep apnea, your doctor provides you a CPAP machine. So you don't, right now, the current criteria, you don't necessarily have to use the machine. It's if the doctor has prescribed it. So if you need the machine. And then they assign a 100% rating if you have chronic respiratory failure or require a tracheostomy. This is going to change under the new proposed rating. So they would require evidence of on the level of impairment from the sleep apnea, not just the fact that you've been diagnosed and require CPAP therapy. So that 30% rating, they are removing it, and instead it would be a 10% rating. So they're adding a 0% for veterans that were diagnosed with sleep apnea when it's asymptomatic, regardless of treatment status. You can get a 10% rating if you can show that your treatment yields incomplete relief. And you would only get 50% and 100% ratings for sleep apnea when the treatment is ineffective or the veteran is unable to use the prescribed treatment due to comorbid issues, which means the onset of other diagnosed conditions happening at the same time. And a 100% rating for sleep apnea would be reserved for veterans who also have end organ damage. Now, for tinnitus, they are essentially removing this condition entirely. So right now, if you are service connected for tinnitus, you were assigned a 10% rating automatically, no more, no less. Under these new proposed changes, the veteran is proposing to evaluate and provide compensation for tinnitus under certain applications of established diagnostic codes, meaning they're saying tinnitus is not a separate disability, but a symptom associated with an underlying condition like hearing loss. So if you are service connected for hearing loss, and that evaluation would be 10%, but if you also have tinnitus, then they would give you a 10% rating, but you would not receive a separate evaluation for tinnitus. The VA ends the section by saying that they would list examples of disabilities that would include tinnitus as a symptom. Now, separately, if you are a veteran who uses a CPAP machine for treatment, you may qualify for a claim under separate litigation. This would be what's called a mass tort claim. So if you use a CPAP, a BiPAP, or ventilator, this may apply to you. Several Philips Respironics machines commonly used for sleep apnea treatment were recalled in June 2021 due to potential health risks. Users of these machines could potentially be exposed to toxic chemicals and carcinogens through a foam that's used in the affected devices as part of their nightly sleep apnea treatment. So some of the conditions that could have developed due to the CPAP use include, but are not limited to, sinus cancer, nasopharynx cancer, liver cancer, disease or liver failure, multiple myeloma, kidney cancer, acute kidney injury or kidney failure, prostate cancer if under the age of 50, breast cancer if under the age of 40, chronic asthma, chronic bronchitis, leukemia, nasal cancer, throat cancer, lung cancer, thyroid cancer, recurring pneumonia, so greater than 3 times in 1 year, sarcoidosis, pulmonary fibrosis, and scarring of the lungs. Please note that the following also applies. The first use has to have been prior than April 25th, 2021. There had to have been 1 year of use of the recalled device, and you had to have been a non-smoker during the time of use, and this includes vaping. And lastly, this is not only for people that have stopped using their CPAP machine after it was recalled. If you are still using the CPAP machine because you have no alternative treatment, you may still qualify. So if this sounds like something that applies to you, you can call us and we can see how we can help. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to hear more about these proposed changes, let us know in the comments below. We're all learning about this at the same time. And remember, these are still proposed changes. Let us know in the comments if you liked this video or if you have questions that you would like us to answer in our future Hill and Ponton videos. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss our next videos. Thank you so much for watching.